Welcome grade 12s to your 7th lesson, which will be on statistics. Let's start with question 1. A group of 30 learners each randomly rolled 2 dice once, and the sum of the values on the uppermost faces on the dice was recorded. The data is shown in the frequency table below. Calculate the mean of the data set. So what you will see here is that we call this set of data we call ungrouped data. So how do we know that this is ungrouped data? And if you look at the data that they give in the first column, you'll see that it's just one number. There's not a group interval that's given. So for instance, the first number is 2, the second number is 3, and so forth and so forth. So there's no intervals, which means that you are using ungrouped data in this case. Okay, and then they say calculate the mean for 2 marks. Now you have 2 options here. You can either go and work out the mean in the very long way, basically taking each data value, timesing it by the frequency, so it's 2 times 0 plus 3 times 3, so it's the data value times by its frequency number, and you're going to do that for all of them. Okay, and you can see that this is quite a long process to take. It does take quite long and very, very tedious. So I'll write it out if you want to work it out that way. And lots and lots and lots more. And then you divide all of that by the total of your frequency. So, and I think they gave that at the beginning. They said 30 learners. 30 learners throw each randomly rolled 2 dice. So you have 5. This should add up to 30. So your total there is then 30 people. So if you want the mean, you take the data value, times it by its frequency, and divide it by the total amount of data values that you have, which will give you an answer of, let me just check here, it's 6,73. But I'm sure that you will agree with me that this method is way too long. Okay, this takes too long. And they didn't say you are not allowed to use the calculator. And guys, this is only for 2 marks. So to do all of this working for 2 marks, it's way too much. So what they actually want you to do is use the calculator. And I'm going to give you the steps on the calculator that can help you solve this problem. So if you are using the silver calculator, that's the one that I am using. The first button that you press is mode. Okay, if you don't have a silver calculator, it's the same step, so don't worry about it. Mode, and then you'll see a few options coming up. You will choose the stat option. Okay, on the silver calculator, that is number 3. I am not sure what the option is for the other calculator, but you just go to the stat option. Then you will get an option that says 1 VAR. Then you press that number there on the calculator. Then you will get 2 columns. You will get a column for your data. I think they call it X. And then you'll get a frequency table. And then you need to put in all your data. So you're going to enter in your calculator 2, 3, and next to it you're going to put your frequency for each of them. And you're going to do that for all of them. Then you're going to press, when you're done, you press the equal sign just to make sure that all of the data is in the table. And then, it's very weird, but then you press the AC button. And that's quite scary because if you press the AC button, all the values on the calculator disappears. But don't worry, the calculator saved it. So then you go and press the shift button. Normally this is in the left-hand corner of your calculator. And then after that, you go to the button 1. Okay, for the number 1. So you will see at the top of the button 1, it says stat. Okay, so it's shift 1, And then you get an option that says number 4 on the silver calculator. Again, you want to choose the option that says VAR. And then if you press that number 4 or that option, you want to go to the option that gives you this little symbol, X mean. Now what this means, that little line at the top, it means the mean or the average. Okay, average is just mean. It's the same thing. And then you press the equal sign and you will get exactly the same answer, 6,73. So those are the steps to take if you want to get to the mean of your data set. And this process, guys, whether you are working with ungrouped or grouped data, these steps will stay exactly the same. So I'm not going to take you through these steps again. I'm showing you the calculator steps once, and then for the rest of the lesson, if we get to the same type of question but for group data, you will know exactly what the steps are. So just come back here if you forget how it works. Okay, then we have the question, determine the median. Determine the median. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly erase all of this, as this is not really necessary. And I'm going to again show you two ways to find the median. We're going to find the median by doing it manually. And then we're going to find the median by using the calculator. So by doing it manually, what you want to do is you want to take half of the frequency total plus 1. So if you have ungrouped data, guys, you are always going to plus 1 to your total. That's just to make sure that you are basically in the middle, no matter what the total of your frequency table is. So if you go a half, that's 30 plus 1, okay, which gives you 31 divided by 2, which will give you 15,5. And what you have here is the position. This is where you will find your median. And now what we do is we go and count down within our frequency table. You see that the first one is 0, so there's nothing to count down. Then we go 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 4 is 9. 9 plus 4 is 13, and here we go. See, my sum is 15,5, and at the moment here, I have a total of 13. So if I'm in the next group, you can see this group consists out of 8 values, and I just want 14, 15 and a half. So I'm taking 2.5 spots up within this group of 8 numbers. So where am I landing up? I'm landing within this group. And now, very important, you read the median off on the side. So your median, if you are going to work it out manually, is going to be the number 7. But look at the mark allocation, guys. It's only for 2 marks. So it's not supposed to be a very tedious and long calculation. This is going to take us too long. This is counting and working out. So I'm just going to erase that. If you wrote that down, that's perfect. Okay, that is an answer, a solution. But we want to use the calculator. You can actually use the silver calculator to get to the median. If you do not have the silver calculator, guys, I'm sorry, but then you will have to do it manually to get to your middle value. By the way, the median is the middle, if you forgot. Okay, so 2.2. How do I get to the median? So we go Shift 1. Now remember, your calculator already has all the values entered. You did all of these steps, and when you press the AC button, you will then press Shift 1. After Shift 1, the option that I want you to choose is the option that says Max Min. It's only the silver calculators that will have that option. The blue ones will not have that option, so unfortunately you will have to do it manually, like I said. And after you chose that one, there's a button which is dedicated to the median, which is number 4. So it says MED for median. And if you then press the equal sign, you will get an answer of 7, which is exactly what we just got using the manual way of finding the median. Just for 2 marks, not a lot of marks because you can actually use the calculator there. 2.3, find the standard deviation. Same thing, it's for 2 marks. This is calculator work and this can work on all calculators. So for 2.3, remember, all your data values are already entered. You've done all the first bits. So what I want you to press now is, again, you press Shift 1. After Shift 1, you will choose the option that says 4 VAR. And then you will see an option that says 3, and it looks like this symbol. It's like a little sigma X. Now please choose the correct one. There's another one that says SX. Okay, that is not the correct one. Although we want standard deviation, and the standard deviation starts with the letter S, it's not that one. Standard deviation, you're going to use the little sigma symbol with the X next to it. And if you press the equal sign, then you will get a standard deviation of 2,26. And that's just also for 2 marks, 2 accuracy marks, because it's just calculator work. Then finally, it says determine the number of items that the sum of the recorded values of the dice is within 1 standard deviation of the mean. Most of the time they don't say determine the number, but they say determine the percentage. Okay, I'm going to do both of these questions. I love asking this question. I've seen it multiple times in exams. So we need to first determine what is the range that I'm looking at. So I have my data value in the middle. What is the lower boundary and what is the upper boundary that I'm actually looking at? So if you want to go 1 standard deviation from the mean, your mean is in the middle, and you work that out. Your mean value that we worked out was, and this was this answer, 6,73, right? That was the mean. So your mean is in the middle, 6,73, and to get to the boundary on the right, we will add the standard deviation, which was 2,26. And to get the boundary on the left, you will take your median and you will subtract your standard deviation. So it's basically having the median in the middle, or your mean, and you want to go 1 standard deviation up and 1 standard deviation down. So that is what that means. And if you do that, you get a value of 4,47, and your upper boundary, you get 8,99. So you want to go and count how many of the numbers do you have that are lying between 4,47 and 8,99. Okay. So it says determine the number of times that the sum of the recorded values of the dice is within 1. So that is your boundary. So let's go and check. How many values do I have that is above 4,47? So obviously that must be a value above 5. And this must be a value below 9. So let's go check. Okay. There's a 5. There's a 6, a 7, and an 8. I can't have a 9 because it needs to be smaller than 8,99. So it's those 4 values there. Now, how many of them do I have? Well, I have 4 5s, so that's 4, plus 4 6s, so that's 8, plus another 8 7s, so what, that's 16, plus another 3. Okay, 17, 18, 19. That means, let's just answer the question. Thus, I have 19 scores. within 1 standard deviation of the mean. So you will get a mark for 4,47, a mark for 8,9, and a mark if you got the amount of scores correct. But now, guys, if I change this question slightly, if I said determine the percentage of the number of times that the sum of the recorded values of the dice is within a certain standard deviation from the mean, what you want to do then is you want to take 19, the amount of scores that you now counted, you want to divide that by the total, and you will times by 100%. So if they ask a question like that, okay, if they want the percentage, the question will probably be out of 4 marks and not just out of 3. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Really not a hard question. Actually quite a nice question to go and answer to get decent marks. Overall statistics, let me just give you this tip. Statistics is a really easy section, and this is the section where you can really score marks. If you can understand the stats, and if you can understand what you are looking at and the values that you are working out, it makes stats quite easy and very and nice to analyze. Question 2. A study is done with 12 employees in a company to understand the relationship between the number of rest days given in a year and the productivity of each employee. And then it gives you what we call an X and a Y list of numbers. And it says calculate the correlation coefficient. Okay, this is a key word to know what to do. Okay, this is easy marks. How do we find the correlation coefficient? Guess what? We're going to use the calculator again. All of this is calculator work. So I'm going to take you through these steps, step by step. Firstly, you will press the word mode on your calculator. You will then go to stat, the option that gives you stat. In the silver calculator, that's button 2. Then you will go to the option that says 2a plus bx. And after that, you will enter your data. Okay, so directly after you've chosen number 2, you will see a data table coming up, and you will see X's on the left and you'll see Y's on the right, and you're going to enter all of these data values, okay, in the correct order. And when you are done, you are going to press the AC button, and again you go to Shift 1. Shift 1. And now you are going to choose the option that says REG. In the silver calculator, it's number 5. I'm not too sure what it is in the blue calculator, but you want to look for this one, our REG. And as soon as you go in there, you have multiple options, and you're going to use all of them later on. But the one you want is number 3 for the silver calculator, little r. This is what we call the correlation coefficient. And this value, guys, tells us how strong this relationship is. Is it weak? Is it moderate? Is it strong? Is it negative? Is it positive? Okay, that is everything that I can read off that little r value. And if you press that r, you get an answer of 0,7337. Okay, that's your little r answer. So this is how it works, and you will see this in your textbook as well. I'm definitely not going to go over that, so please go and revise what to say if r falls in between certain values. But normally, when you have an r that's very close to 1, okay, this is 0,7, so it's not that close to 1. I would say this is moderately strong. That is what my answer would be here. Moderately strong. But there is actually a cutoff, and I can't be sure now. I don't have those cutoffs with me, but you can find it in the textbook. The closer to 1 you are, the stronger the correlation coefficient is. So the closer to 0 you are, obviously the weaker it is. So if you are smaller than 0.5, it's definitely a weak relationship. If you are bigger than 0.5, it's definitely going to be a positive, strong relationship, but it will depend on where you are. Okay, so question 2 says, let's just go back to the question here. It says, refer to your correlation coefficient and circle the letter that best describes the relationship. So it says fairly strong but negative. Okay, that's not true. If this relationship was a negative, I would have gotten a negative answer. So that's not right. So we can cross out A. Very weak, definitely not. Okay, it's very close to 1, so it's not weak. Then fairly strong positive correlation. That sounds about right. It's fairly strong. It's not very, very strong, but it's up there. Perfect. Okay. If something is perfect, guys, if you get a perfect correlation, that means that your your correlation coefficient is exactly 1. No decimals, no roundings. Your answer is exactly 1. Then you have a perfect positive correlation, and that is not the case in this one. So your answer there is C. Then in number C, if the equation of the least squares, okay, let me just try and highlight this maybe. We'll use a highlighter. The equation of the least squares regression line. Yo, that's a mouthful. So what is that? So the equation of least squares. That's the one way of asking it. The other way is to say the regression line, or the other way is to say the equation of the exact line of best fit. Okay, all of these things, guys, it's the same thing. The equation of least squares is the same as the regression line, it's the same as the equation of the exact line of best fit. And you'll see that it's y equals to a plus bx, and it's also just for 2 marks. Again, this is just calculator work. So I'm going to take you here on the right hand side. Let's go through C, and I'm again just going to show you how to get to those values. So you've already entered all your values at the beginning of the question. So again, you are just going to press Shift 1 for me. After you've pressed Shift 1, you will now go to the option that says 5 REG. Probably not in the black calculator or the blue one. You want to just find the option that says REG. And then you want to choose number 1. That will give you your value of A. If you choose number 2, B, okay, that gives you the value of B. But you'll have to do all of it again. So if you press A and you press equal, you will get an answer of 0.6268. And then you have to press the AC button, and then you have to do all of it again. Then you press number 2 for your B, and you get 0.0264. Sorry. Okay, and that's your B value. And then you can just write that within the equation. So your A value is 0.6268. And they wanted 4 decimals, so just be careful. Read the question very carefully to make sure that you don't make a mistake with that. And this is 0.0264x. And for that you get 2 marks, basically 2 marks for the correct answers. Should the regression line in C be used to predict the productivity of an employee if 30 rest days were given to the employee in a year? Now, if you go up, what is the maximum amount of rest days that you have in this row? The maximum amount of rest days is 12. So this is what we call the upper boundary. Okay, this is the upper boundary of your x values. So now they're asking if I want to now use this equation above and just plug in, I want to plug in 30 in here, because X is 30 rest days. Can I trust the answer? Is that valid for me to use? Grade 12s, you need to understand that the equation that you just created is using the values in this table only. So any prediction outside of the boundaries of the maximum and minimum values that you have in this row, outside of it, you cannot trust, because you don't know what the trend does after 12, and you don't know what the trend does before 1, okay, because 1 is your lowest number. So the equation only gives you the trend between 1 and 12. So can I trust it? Can I trust if I am predicting what the productivity will be for 30 rest days? And you will say no. And this is what we say, okay? The reason, it's very, very easy. If this value, if this 30 falls outside, we call it extrapolation. Fancy, but it's easy. Extra, outside. If it's inside, guys, so if I said, should this regression line be used to predict the productivity of an employee if, let's say, if 7 rest days were given? Yes, of course. Why can I use 7 rest days within the equation? Because now the 7 lies inside my domain. Then you will say intrapolation. So those are the two terminologies that you just need to study. So you get a mark for no and you get a mark for extrapolation. You don't even have to explain it, guys. You don't even have to explain it. You can just use those 2 words. Okay, and then, sorry, that's just double of what we just did, and that is D's answer. Let's go to question 3. Question 3. The scatter plot below is a graphical representation of the relationship between a household's monthly electricity bill and their monthly water bill within the same suburb. And then they say the electricity bills between 100 and 1,000 were used in the study. So your minimum here is 100 and your maximum here is 1,000. Awesome. Then it says label the outlier on the diagram above with the letter T. Now that is so easy. You can see that this is an outlier. It's the only point that doesn't make sense. If you look at all the other little dots that I have here, all of them are facing or going in the same direction, and you can kind of see some straight line coming out there. But this dot here, oh no, this one is way out, so we call that the outlier. That's for 1 mark. Then it says comment on the relationship between a household's monthly electricity bill and the monthly water bill. Now all I want you to say, you can't comment on the strength because you don't really know. Well, you can see the dots are very close to one another, so it's probably strong. But what I want you to say here is, if they say comment on the relationship, then you're going to say, as electricity increases, the water bill also increases. So as the one variable is increasing, the other variable is also increasing. So that is what we comment on the relationship on that. If you said here perfect or not perfect, if you said strong positive relationship, I would have given you the mark as well. Okay. Then it says, if the outlier was removed from the data above, how would this affect the correlation coefficient? Now, before you can answer that, you need to know, what does this give me? What is little r? and little r is the strength of the relationship. Okay, so meaning the closer that the dots are, to one another, the higher your little r will be. The further away these dots are from one another, the smaller the little r will be. So if you take out, guys, this outlier, what's going to happen is immediately your correlation coefficient will increase. Because now your relationship is stronger. Your relationship is stronger. You can also say it's more perfect. Because the lines, the dots are all close to one another. We don't have to worry about this random one here at the bottom that is part of the results. We can actually ignore it, and that makes our relationship stronger and more perfect, which means that little r will increase. The last question. The equation of the line of best fit is y equals to a plus bx, including the outlier. So let's just cross that out. The outlier is now in play. And then it says, if the outlier was excluded. So now at the moment, if you have to draw a line of best fit, where would you more or less put it? Now remember, if this number here, if this variable coordinates, if these coordinates are in play, it means that it will pull the line down slightly. Okay, this point will pull down the gradient. It pulls down the gradient of my line of best fit. Because of this point here, I need to consider that when I draw my line of best fit. But now it says I'm excluding that. So I'm not looking at this point. Now what will happen to this purple line's gradient? Because that is what B is. B is the gradient. What will happen to the gradient? Guys, the gradient will increase, correct? The gradient will increase. If you have this point there, it's going to pull the gradient down, so it will decrease. But if this point is not there anymore, immediately if you draw this line in, the gradient will increase, because now you want the same amount of dots at the top as at the bottom of the straight line of best fit, and that's more or less how the line's going to look like. So your gradient will increase. It's lovely questions. They love asking these questions to test your understanding of what a line of best fit is and how it's influenced by the dots on your diagram. Question 4. An ice cream shop has recorded sales of ice cream in rand, and the temperature for 12 days in a certain month was recorded, and then the amount of ice creams that was sold. And then they give you the scatter plot of those values below. And then it says 2.1, describe the influence of temperature on the sales of ice cream in the scatter plot. Now you can see the trend here. So as the temperature increases, okay, your sales will also increase. So that's the first answer. Very similar to the previous question. Give a reason why this trend cannot continue indefinitely. So if I want to go on and on and on, why can't I do that? Guys, the temperature can't keep on rising. We can't live at a 60 degrees Celsius temperature. So the temperature needs to give us livable conditions. we can't go on indefinitely and making the temperature rise, because at a stage people are not going to drink cool drink anymore or buy ice cream. They're just going to faint and die because it's too hot. That's why. And that's for 1 mark. Calculate an equation for the least squares regression line. And I'm not going to take you through those steps again. You will put all of these data values in, go through all the little steps. Let's just check, did I actually solve this question for you? It doesn't look like it. Question 5. Yes, I did. I did actually find it for you. This is question 4. Okay. Question 4, here we go. So if you do all of those steps correctly, and you can test yourself, okay, you can do this by yourself. Use the calculator, test your calculator skills, and then you get an answer for A. You should get a minus 460,35, and for B you should get an answer of 30,09 if everything goes well. So that's 2 marks there, and that's just calculator work. 2.4, calculate the correlation coefficient. Same thing, guys. I'm just going to give you the answer here. Also calculator work, you can test yourself. You can see this little r is very, very high. Okay, so this is a very, very strong correlation. And obviously, like I thought, the next question asks, comment on the strength of the relationship. And you can say this is very strong positive. So very strong positive. It's a positive answer and it's very, very close to 1, and that's why it is strong. And this is actually the question I want to get to, 2.6. Draw the line of regression, and I put this question in myself. Draw the line of regression on the axis above, indicating at least 2 points on the graph. Now, I need you to please make note of this. If they ever ask you to draw in the exact line of regression, I need you to test 2 things or 3 things for me. The first thing that you will need to go and figure out is what is the mean for your x's and what is the mean for your y's. And together, that must be your first coordinate to use. So to get to your x value and your y value, this is again just calculator work, and we did go over that. So you can just go and test that again. Go through all the steps yourself. You get 28,675 for the mean of your x's. And then for the mean for your y's, you get 402,42. Which means your first point on this graph, you need to go and draw in yourself. So 28,6 and 402. So that's going to be 28,6 is more or less here, and 402 somewhere there. So somewhere here, you're going to have 28,675 as your x value, and your y value is 402,42. And we give a mark if both of those, actually 2. We give 2 marks if you worked out the x and the y's mean. And your graph will go through that point. And now the second thing that I need you to test for me is, can I find an x-intercept? Okay, can I work out an x-intercept? Meaning, can I make y 0? So you will see your equation that you have at the top, they gave as minus 460,35 plus 30,09x. And if I want an x-intercept, I would make y 0. Okay, and then I want to find x's answer, so I take the 460,35 across. Okay, so let's quickly work that out. That's 460,35 divided by 30,09. And that gives you 15,299. Okay, I didn't round that off. So that's an x-intercept. Now, if you go to your graph, you will see that your lowest x value here is 20. Okay, your lowest x value there is 20. So you can't even plot this point. So it's not going to work, not for this graph. So if that doesn't work, the third thing that I need you to check is your y-intercept. How do we find y-intercepts? We make x 0. So if I do that, I get a y-intercept of minus 460,35. Okay, guys, this is very, very low. If you look at your lowest y value, your lowest y value is 150. So you can't even plot your y-intercept. So that's also not going to work. So what then? Because I need another point, you see. This is the only point I have so far. So then, last step. Okay, if the x-intercept and y-intercept doesn't work, choose your own x that falls into the domain. So I decided to choose 23 as my x value. So I use 30,09x minus 460,35, and then x spot I'm going to plug in 25, which falls into my set. Okay, the highest x value here, if you look at the top, 20, 26, 28, 29, 30s, okay, 30, 32. So it's fine if I choose 25, it falls into that range. And then you get an answer of 231,72. So your other coordinate that you can use is 25, 231,72. And now you're going to plot that. We're going to estimate it. 25, 231. 25 is there. 231 is somewhere here. Somewhere here. No, sorry, that's not 23. Let's just do that again. 23 is there, and then 231 is somewhere around there. And now you're going to take your ruler for me. Please do not do this with your free hand. We want to see a straight line. And what you want to do is connect your two red dots. So the two red dots that you plotted, you are going to connect them, and perfect, there's your line of best fit, or your line of least squares, or your regression line. So if you are going to draw in, please, we want to see the coordinates on the graph, and you have to go through these steps to give me the correct coordinates. Very important to remember that we will be looking for this. Okay, we want to see that mean value for x's and mean value of y's. Question 5, and finally we get to some cumulative frequency curve questions. So let's start here. It says, calculate the values of A and B in the table above. Let's start with A. Now you will see that A falls under the frequency table. Now you need to understand the difference between frequency and cumulative frequency. It's two different things. Frequency is the total of the data number that you're looking at. So at the bottom you have 475, and then there's one value missing. Okay, so A is missing. How do I know how many numbers fall within this group of 15 to 25? So that's what I need to figure out. Let's move to cumulative frequency. What does that mean? Cumulative frequency is the running total. It's the running total of my frequency. In short, I'm taking the frequency and I'm accumulating them. I am accumulating the frequencies, and as I'm accumulating them, I'm adding them. So let's check this. The first one says 200. So what's the cumulative frequency? 200. Awesome. Now, 200 plus A. So the first two added will give you 450. So how can I work out A? Well, if 450 is the total, I just need to say 450 minus 200 will give me the answer for A. Because if I add these two together, 200 plus A, that should give me 450. Okay, so that's not too bad. A's answer is 250. That's 1 mark. And now the one that's missing is inside the cumulative frequency. So what total or which two numbers will give me this answer? At this stage, the sum of my frequencies, the one at the top, is 470. So I take 470 plus the next frequency, which is 32. So that's 470 plus 32 gives me the running total of my frequency, which will give me 502. And that's your second mark. Okay, let's go to the next one. Calculate the estimated mean. And I knew we were going to get to this question. We already did some question using the calculator to get to the actual mean. But this says estimated mean. Now, why does it say estimated mean? Guys, it says estimated mean because we are working with grouped data. And if you are working with group data, your answers are all estimations. We don't know what the actual mean is, but we can estimate it more or less. So how do we do that? And you are going to use exactly the same steps as what you did previously. But if you get to this step where you have to put in your data values, so you have your data values on the left, you have your frequency here on the right hand side. So going through all of the steps, so mode, stat, VAR, and then you're going to plug in your data values. What values do you put into X? Because now your values are all grouped. And this is the big difference. The values that you put into the calculator will be the midpoint of your group interval. So the midpoint of your group interval. How did they get to 10, guys? How did they find 10? So all you need to do is take you want to find the middle between 5 and 10, 15 and 5. So what you do is you say 15 minus 5, that gives you 10. Divide 10 by 2, that gives you 5. And then what is the middle? So 5 plus 5 gives you 10. So you just go and find the middle. 25 minus 15, it's still 10. So I need to add 5, so then you get 20 after 15. So whatever the values are in between, you just take the 2, subtract it, get the difference, divide that by 2, and add it to the first number. Okay, so that's how you get to the midpoint. So what goes into the calculator then is your midpoint of your interval. 10, 20, 30, 40, and so forth. Your frequency, that is obviously, that still stays the same. So you have 250 there, and you have 20 and 32 and so forth and so forth. You enter all of that, you press the AC button, you follow the steps, and you want to choose the mean average, which is this button that has the little symbol at the top, which means your mean average or your mean age comes to, and I did work this out, is 47,14. 47,14, and that's for 2 marks. Find the modal class. It's also the same as saying find the mode. So what you're looking for here is the highest frequency. So which number? Let's just erase a bit so we can highlight here. What is the highest frequency that you have? The highest frequency is 475. So what is your modal class? Your modal class is from 65 to 75 because that is the highest frequency. Last question, calculate the estimated, oh no, there's 2 questions left. Calculate the estimated standard deviation of the people who say they will buy the product. Guys, this is exactly the same steps, except the data that you will enter, okay, the data within your calculator will be the midpoint of your interval with your frequency. And then you will follow the prompts and the steps to get to your standard deviation, which is, I did work that out as well. Okay, the standard deviation, I worked that out. You get 24,27 as your standard deviation there. Then they say, if the frequency for all the groups increases by 10 people, what will the new mean and the new standard deviation be? So I added in this question. That I've seen this question asked multiple times in past paper trials and past papers. So I wanted to put this in to do this with you. So basically what they're saying is that all of these values, all of these frequencies here are increased by 10 people. So what will the new average be? Now, your average originally that you worked out was 47,147. 47,14, sorry. Okay. Now, if I add 10 to every single group, to every single frequency, that means that I just need to add 10 to my mean, because my mean is now going to move up with 10 units. That's how easy it is. If all the values increase by 10, then your average will also increase by 10. Your average will move up. Then, the other thing that we need to talk about is the standard deviation. Now, your standard deviation at the moment is 24,27. Now, if all the data values, if all the groups increase by 10, we need to understand what standard deviation gives us to actually answer this question. So, what does it give? The standard deviation, guys, gives us an indication how widely the numbers are grouped, widely or narrow, to the average. So how close are all my values to my mean? Okay, so are the numbers very close to the average, or are they very far away from the average, or are all the numbers grouped closely towards the average, or are the numbers grouped very widely further away from my average? That is what the standard deviation gives me. And at the moment, this is a massive standard deviation, guys, which means that my numbers are quite fairly stretched out. There's lots of variation, okay, in the spread from your average. They're not closely grouped around your average. So if I decide to add 10 to every single total, will that change the groupings Okay, the differences away from my mean. No, it won't. If I just add 10 to every single value, all of this will just move up, but the distances from the average will not change. Yes, the values will increase, but what does the standard deviation tell me? It's about the distances away from the average. So if all the values increase by 10, then the distances to the average stays the same. So your standard deviation will stay the same. It will not increase and it will not decrease because all the values are getting 10 people added to it. The mean, however, will definitely increase. And I would give 2 marks, and I would give another 2 marks for explaining. Explain why the mean stays the same, explain why the standard deviation stays the same, and explain why the mean increases. Okay, lovely question. Let's go to question 6. Question 6 says, use the frequency polygon below and draw a cumulative frequency curve. Finally, we are starting to draw cumulative frequency curves, but we are used to using data values, firstly. So we need to have our intervals, and we need to have our cumulative frequency. We can't draw anything without those two columns. Now, what they gave you here is a frequency polygon, which is in fact a frequency table, but it's just drawn differently. So your first interval is 1 to 1.2. Your second one, 1.2 to 1.4. 1.4 to 1.6. Okay, this is the width of the bar that I'm using here, if you were wondering. 1.6 to 1.8, 1.8 to 2, and then that is it. Those are the only bars that I used. And now let's go check what is the frequency. So let's first just find the frequency, and then we'll find the cumulative frequency. And we have cumulative frequency. So we're just going to read that off. What is the height of the bar? The frequency there is 15, and we're going to enter that. For the next one, the frequency is 40. Then we have 30. Then 10, and then 5. Now we want the cumulative frequency, so now we're going to start adding these values. Adding 15, that's 15. 15 plus 40, that gives me 55. 55 plus 30, that gives me 85. 85 plus 10, that gives me 95. 95 plus 5, finally that gives me 100. This last value, this is your frequency. This is your frequency total. It's also the total of your data. Okay, so if they don't give you the frequency table, guys, and they just give you the cumulative frequency, the total amount of people or the total amount of objects or things that you are adding, that is always the last little block within your cumulative frequency curve. And now we want to sketch this. So we're going to start off with a heading. This is the cumulative frequency curve for chicken weights. Chicken weights. So that's my main heading. On my x-axis, I'm going to put in here, this is my chicken weights. So your data always goes on your x-axis, and then on your y-axis, you will always have your, trying to write here, your cumulative frequency. Sorry, I don't have space, but you need to please put that in. Your y value is always your cumulative frequency. Your x value is always your data values that you are looking at. Okay, now what is the first thing that I plot? If I need to plot a cumulative frequency curve, what do I start off with? And you will start off with the first value of your first interval. Okay, I'll say that again. The first value of your first interval is 1. So you go to your x-axis, you go look for number 1, and you plot your first point. You actually get a mark if you start at the correct place on your x-axis. So this is where you start. Then what is the next thing that I plot? I'm now going to use the outer limit, okay, of my interval and my cumulative frequency number. So it's always the upper boundary or the upper limit of your interval and your cumulative frequency to get you to the next point. So 1.2, you start at 1.2 and your y value there is 15. So 1.2 and 15, let's just check. This is 25 and it's going up in 25s, and we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's going up in 5s, and we want 15. So 5, 10, 15, 1.2, there it is. Okay, let's take the next one. The next one, the upper boundary is 1.4, and now I have a cumulative frequency of 55. So 1,4 and 55. 1,4, 55, there it is. And we plot. Next one, 1,6 and 85. 1,6 and 85. So 1,6, 85, let's just check that's there. Awesome. And the next one is 1,8, again the upper boundary with your 95, 1,8 and 95. 1,8, 95, that's there. And finally, sorry, 1,8 went too far. There it is. Let's just get this one away. And the last one that we have is number 2. So 2 and 100. 2 and 100. So I'm going to go up to 2. Yes, 2 and 100. That's there. And there's my points. And now I need to connect the dots. So I don't want you to use a ruler here. You're going to do this with your free hand. And you will connect the dots. And there you go. Okay, so there is your cumulative frequency curve. Absolutely beautiful. It shows us a nice curve. So we will give a mark for the headings, a mark for you where you started, a mark for your plot. So did you use the end points? Okay, and then a mark for your curve. So how does the shape look like? Did you plot all of your points correctly? So that's more or less 4 marks max, and then maybe 2 marks for completing the cumulative frequency table. Okay, so this is really a question that you want to get your marks at. Nice and easy, and they love asking this, how to draw it. Then I'm going to use the curves. I'm not done yet with this question. I'm now going to use my graph, and I'm going to determine, and it says here, write down the interval. So I'm going to change this question slightly. I'm going to say estimate using your graph. Using your graph. So I want you to find the lower quartile. Now, what is the lower quartile? The lower quartile is quartile 1. And there's a little formula for quartile 1. It is a quarter times n. And we use n if it's grouped data. If it's ungrouped data, you would say n plus 1. Okay, but ogives and cumulative frequency curves all use group data, so we don't have to worry about adding the 1 there. So we want to work out what is a quarter of 100, because that's the total, the frequency total. Okay, that goes in there. And that tells us it's 25. And this is the position. So now you want to go read off what is quartile 1. So let's go back. My position is 25. So I need to go to the y-axis because that's where my positions are. And I'm going to go to 25 and I'm going to draw a line. So I'm using my ruler. As soon as I hit the graph, I stop. Then I put down my ruler and I read down, straight down. And now I want to estimate this value. What is this value more or less? Now you will get 1,3 on that line. So it's something in between 1,2 and 1,3. So I'm going to say my quartile 1 is 1,35. Wait, let me just check again. Something between 1,2 and 1,3. Sorry, this is 1,25. So it's in between. 1,25. And that's the value of my quartile 1. Then how do I find the median? How do I find the median? That is quartile 2, and there's a formula for that. That is a half times n, which gives me a half times 100, which is 50. Again, guys, this is your position. It is not your median. You still have to go find your median. So let's go back. Again, you're going to use your ruler. Let's use a different color this time. So let's use green. Okay, so I'm putting down my ruler on 50 until I touch the graph. Then I read down. Oopsie, sorry. Then I read down from 50. And I'm getting 1.4 as an answer. Okay, so 50, 1.4. That doesn't really look. Yeah, I guess so. It's more or less correct, eh? It is a very steep graph. Yeah, it's more or less. So let's say it's 1.4. So at 50, my quartile 2 is 1.4. Yes. Next question, they say the upper quartile. The upper quartile. The upper quartile, guys, that is your quartile 3. And there's also a formula for that. That's 3/4 of your total, which in this case is 75. So we want to read off what is the 75th number. The 75th number. So I'm going to use the straight line again. Let's use blue. 75, there it is, until you touch the graph. Awesome. Then you come down and you read that point off. That looks like 1.56. 1.56. Let's say that 1.56. Quartile 3. 1.56. And then finally, what is the 90th percentile? What is the 90th percentile? I love asking these questions. They can also ask what is the 9th decile? How do you work that out? The 90th percentile and the 9th decile. Okay, so let's work out the 90th percentile. If they ask a percentile, guys, you take whatever they ask, you divide it by 100, and you times that by n. So that is the percentile. If they ask what is the 9th decile, you take 9 and you divide it by 10, and then you times it by n. So 90 times, let's just see. I'm just looking for my answer here quickly. Oh, here it is. 90 times 100 divided by n Okay, obviously you're going to put 100 in, so that's just going to cancel it out. So you get 90 as your position. So you just need to go and figure out what is your 90th position. So we go back to the graph. We're going to use the ruler again, and we're going to go to 90. 90 is 95. So 90 is there. And then read down. And then you get something just past 1,7. So I'm going to say 1,77. 1,77. 1,77. And that is your 90th percentile. So if they ask deciles, you do it exactly the same, but you just divide by 10 instead of 100. Okay, not very hard. Just one small thing to remember. Okay, now I want to also give you a tip here. If they say estimate using your graph, okay, estimate the answers using the graph, you have to show your reading lines. So like I did here on my graph, okay, if you look at my graph, I have lots of lines drawn using my ruler to go and find those values. We want to see these, okay? We give marks for using the graph to get to those values. Finally, the last question says, draw the box and whisker on the graph above and comment on the skewness of the graph. Now, guys, I'm just going to erase this because I need to have some space here. So, how do we draw a box and whisker, and what do we need to draw a box and whisker? The first thing that you need to understand is that a five number summary, okay, they talk about this word quite often. A 5-number summary is what you need to draw a box and whisker. And what are they? Okay, firstly, it's the lowest value. What is the lowest value in your data set? Secondly, what is the highest value? What is the highest value on your data set? Then the third thing that you need is quartile 1. Quartile 1. Then you need quartile 2, which is also called the median. Okay, this is your middle value, your median. And then finally, you need quartile 3. Quartile 3. And if you look at what you've done at the top, you already have all of those values ready. Okay, so I'm just going to go back quickly. We need to get those values back because we're going to use them now to draw the graph. Fantastic. So my quartile 1 is 1,25, and I'm going to go back to the graph now. I want to draw the box and whisker. Now I'm going to erase this heading because I want to show you that you can actually use your ogive, your curve, to plot your box and whisker straight below. It's quite cool. So what is quartile 1? Well, we just found quartile 1. It was at 25. So what you do is you make a little line where you measured off your quartile 1, and then you just give me the value at the top, 1,3. That was our quartile 1. We actually said 1,25. So let's just go back. So we want to say 1,25. 1,25 is my quartile 1. Then we had quartile 2, which was 1.4. Let's just go back. 1.4. Go and read off 1.4. Make a little line there underneath 1.4 and right at the top 1.4. And then finally, I had quartile 3, which was 1,56. 1,56, and I read it off there. There it is. So that's 1,56. Finally, what is my lowest value? My lowest value is 1. You can see that there. And what's my biggest value is 2. So at 1 you make a little line, and at 2 you make a little line. And all you do now is you connect the box. So the the 3 little lines in the middle makes up your little box, and then you go towards your whisker at the end. Beautiful. And there's your little box and whisker diagram. So you want to write there 1 and you want to write there 2. Okay, and then it says comment on the skewness of the graph. Now, guys, there are so many ways to comment on the skewness of a box and whisker graph, and every textbook is different. But last year at marking, we've decided that when we talk about skewness, we're only going to look at one way of finding the skewness of a box and whisker, and this is now to not get confused between all the other ways that the textbooks describes. So to determine the skewness, we're going to use quartile 2, we're going to use the highest value, and we're going to use the lowest value. And what you want to do is you want to see what is the difference between your highest value and quartile 2. So I'm going to say that is 2 minus 1, 4. Okay. And we're going to work that out. And we get 0,6. Then I'm going to say I want to find out what is the difference between my middle and my lowest value. So my middle is 1,4. My lowest value is 1. And if I work that out, I get 0,4. And what you want to check is which one is bigger. Okay, and you can clearly see that the right hand side, this difference there, this difference is bigger than this difference. So we then say this diagram is skewed to the right. It's skewed to the right. And that is mostly the way that we use to determine the skewness of a box and whisker diagram. Okay, that is how you can determine where towards it is skewed. So if I say skewed to the right, you can also say positively skewed. Positively skewed, that's the other way in which you can state it. If you had the other way around, so if your left hand side was, if the difference in your left hand side was bigger than the differences on your right hand side, then you would be obviously skewed to the left. Okay, so that's not a hard question, actually quite easy, lovely questions to do. Let's go to question 7. Question 7, and it says a diagram is given and it's an ogive, and then it gives you some weird curve there, a cumulative frequency curve, and it says on the same grid as the ogive, sketch the histogram for the mark distribution of the grade. Assume 8 equal class intervals. Ooh, okay, now this question you have to really think about. So what are the intervals that we're working with here? We are starting with 20, which means my first interval that I'm working with is 20 to 30. So that's the first group. Then I'm working with 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60, 60 to 70, that's even still in, 70 to 80 is still in. Let's just see how high does this thing go. It goes up to 100. So that's 80 to 90, and finally we have 90 to 100. So there's 8 intervals. Now how did I get to the dots? Okay, how do I draw the graph? The first dot that I start with, we know that that is my first value of my interval. But how did I get to the next dot? Well, the next dot I used 30 and then the y value. So now let's read this off. Now if you zoom in here, this is like very, very small, but these little lines go up in twos, 2, 4, 6, 8. So you can see that point there, okay, I'm just going to try and that point there, that is at 2, 30 and 2. So I'm just going to put in here a cumulative frequency here at the top, and that will be 2. That was my first plot. And if I now have to draw this, okay, I need to draw this histogram, we can go back. So my frequency, let's just put a frequency here as well. My frequency will be 2 as well. So I'm going to go from 30 up to 2, and I'm drawing my little bar in there. It's very small, so I hope you can see what I'm doing there. Okay, let's take the next one. The next one, I'm using 40. So 40 is my end point, and I need to read off this value here. So that value, it seems that's 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so that is at 8. My cumulative frequency there is 8. Now you must be careful, because I need to draw the histogram, and the histogram uses the frequency. It doesn't use the cumulative frequency. So what is the difference? And this is what you need to, if there's anything that you remember of this lesson, guys, it's that the difference between your cumulative frequencies gives you your frequency. So what is 8 minus 2? It's 6. So you want to go up to 6 to draw your next one. So 2, 4, 6, it's just up to there. You're going to come down, and we're going to close the little bar, and there we go. Okay, let's take the next one, 50. So I use 50, I go up and read off this point here. Okay, what is that point? It looks like 10. So my cumulative frequency at that point is 10. Now again, what is the difference between 8 and 10? It is 2. That's how I get to my frequency. So I need to draw a little bar on 2. There we go. Awesome. Take the next one, 60. 60, let's go up. I need to read off this value here. That looks like 12, 14. 12, let me just double check. Yes, that looks like 14. So I'm just going to put in there 14. And then the difference between those two, that gives me 4. So I now need to go up to 4 and draw a little bar. So it's just a little bit higher than 2. There we go. There's my little bar. Next one. 70. 70 I'll go up to, I need to read this off here. That looks like 22, 24. 24. The difference between 24 and 14, okay, this is 10, so this is quite high. So this little box is going to go up to 10. So now we're going to start rising the boxes here, it seems. Let's take 80. Let's read off 80. Where is that point? There. So 80, I would say that's 40, 42, 44. Okay, wait, let me just see. This is so unclear. Let's say this is 44, guys. 44. And now we get the difference. 44 minus 24. That gives us a distance of 20. So now we need to go up to 20 with this bar. So we're going to go up to 20, close the bar, and come down. Beautiful. And then we're almost done. We need to read off 90. Wow, 90 is so high. It's up here. So that is past 100, and it looks like 104, if I'm not mistaken. And then we say 104 minus 44, that gives us 60. Okay, so the frequency table now needs to go up all the way to 60. Okay, let's just draw that in. There's 60. And then we close the bar. And then lastly, let's use another color. We need to go to 100. So if I read 100 off, I'm ending at, let's see, that looks like 140, guys. If I read that off correctly, 140 minus 104, that gives me 36. So this bar needs to go up to 36, And I'm going to draw that 36, 32, 34, 36. There we go. And I come down. And there's my histogram. There's my histogram. Absolutely wonderful. Very nice question to ask. We are asking it backwards. So you must be able to take an ogive, work backwards from the ogive to get to the frequency table so that you can draw the histogram. So the most important thing to remember here is that the difference between your cumulative frequencies gives you your frequency. If you remember that, you can't go wrong. Describe the skewness of the mark distribution. Describe the skewness of the mark distribution. Now, guys, if you look at the histogram, you have a lot of values here. You see how high those bars are. So a lot of your values are grouped to the right. So a lot of them are lying on the right-hand side. But then, unfortunately, you have this tail. So there's a few people that are pulling down, that are pulling your values to the left. So that's why we say the data is negatively skewed. Negatively skewed, meaning skewed to the left. How do I know that? Because there's a tail. The tail is pulling the data to the left-hand side. Most of the data, okay, most of your data lies on the right-hand side, but it is skewed to the left because it pulls down your values. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And then the final question states, state whether the statement is true or false. Explain, okay, and this is such an important concept to understand. It says, state whether true or false, the median is closer to the upper quartile than the lower quartile. Now, I know that we just discussed skewness, guys, but there's another way in which you can determine skewness according to textbooks. If your quartile 1 minus your quartile, if your quartile 2 minus your quartile 1, so this is your median, is bigger than quartile 3 minus quartile 2, then you have skewed to the left. Then if you have your median minus your quartile 1, if that difference is smaller than quartile 3 minus quartile 2, then you are skewed to the right. So what they're saying, we know that it's negatively skewed, so which one of these should work? It should be this one. Okay, this one should be the correct one because this one is negatively skewed. So is the median closer to the upper quartile than the lower quartile? Is the median closer to the upper quartile than the lower quartile? Yes. Okay, yes, that is true. This difference is smaller, which means the median is closer to quartile 3, to your upper quartile. So the difference is smaller, so they are closer together. This difference is bigger, so they are further away from one another. So that's what that means. The other way, and I haven't discussed this yet, but the other way in which you can determine skewness, okay, is to use your mean and your median. So if you compare these two, it's actually quite nice to use this one, especially if you have the values. It makes it a lot quicker. So if your average is smaller than your median, your data will be skewed to the left. And this is study work, guys, please. If your mean is bigger than your median, then your data will be skewed to the right. So that is just another option that you can use if you want to describe or work out the skewness of a graph. Cool, let's go to question 8. Question 8 says the following. The results are summarized, and again we get a cumulative frequency curve below. We get the cumulative frequency curve, and now we get the frequencies. And now they are asking, I need to go and find the value of little a, firstly. What is the value of a on the horizontal axis of the cumulative frequency curve? So where do I normally start drawing ogives? Where do I get this value? Yes, you've guessed it, the smallest value of your first group interval. So that is just 50. Nice and easy question. Then how many learners were asked for information? So how many learners did we interview? And Miss Easter said the highest value that your ogive reaches, which is the last value of your cumulative frequency curve, that is your total of people that you are surveying, or the total of data that you are working with. So that is 400. Now it says determine the values of P and M. Now where is P and M? There's P and there is M. So how do I do that? Well, P is 150 to 200. So this is 50 to 100 to 150 to 200 to 250, 300, 350, and then 400, right? So the one that's missing, I need to go and find the 150 to 200 mark. So I plotted the first 2 points, so this point I need to go read off. So at 200, what am I reading off? What is my cumulative frequency at 200? My cumulative frequency at 200 is 100. Okay, now how did I work that out again? Remember, we are adding here. So my cumulative frequency, the first one will be 20. Then I will have 20 plus 30 is 50. Then I'll have 50 plus this number must give me 100. Hope that makes sense. Let me just say that again. 50 plus this number must give me 100. So that is 50. Okay, let's keep on adding. Now the next one is at 250. Let's go read this off. The differences in my cumulative frequency is equal to my frequency. So there I get 200. So 50 plus something, guys, 50 plus something must give me 200, which means this must be 150. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's just double check. Yes, that's 200, and I'm adding definitely 150. Cool stuff. And I'm done with that question. Also nice question, nice and tricky, because again I have to work backwards. I need to read off my cumulative frequency and then subtract it from the previous amount to actually get to that value of my cumulative frequency. Let's just put that in. Sorry. I put that into the wrong value. So this is actually, so that is 50. 50 plus 50 gives me 100. Then 100 plus what? 100, sorry, I ended off with 100. So let's just do that one again. 100, I want to have 200 here. So what's the difference between 200 and 100? That gives me 100. So M is actually 100, guys. Sorry, I had the wrong value in there. So I'm going to read off 200. What's the difference between 200 and the previous cumulative frequency? That's 100, and that gives you your frequency total. Question 9 says, in the diagram below, the cumulative frequency curves are given, and it's for boys and girls. How many students, boys and girls, were surveyed in this total? Okay, so let's check out the girls. The girls, that's 48. The boys, that looks like 37 more or less. Okay, so we're going to say that's 48 plus 35. Okay, let's just check that one again. Yeah, it's 33, 34, 35, 36. So that's 48 plus 35, and that gives me a total of 83 people. So that's 2 marks. Determine the median amount of money spent by each group. So here you want to get half of 48, which is 24 for the girls. And we're going to read that off. That looks more or less like 350. So let's say about 350 for the girls. And the median for the boys, that is about 17,5. So that's 17,5 is more or less there somewhere. Somewhere there. And then we read it off. So we'll say just before 500. So we'll say 490 is the median for the boys. Then estimate the total number of boys and girls who spent 700 Rand or less. Okay, so 700 Rand or less. So I need to go to 700 here on my x-axis. And now I want to go up and read down the totals. So 700 Rand for the boys. That looks just above 25, 26. Just above 26 there. And 700 for the girls. If you go up to the girls curve and you read that value off, that looks like just past 38. Okay, so we will say basically 26 plus 38. Okay, that's the amount of people that spend 700 Rand or less. So if you add those two together, you get 64 people. 64 people, 700 Rand or less. What percentage of boys spend less than 200? Okay, less than 200. So we go to 200, we go to the boys, and we read off this value. Okay, that looks like about, did they say what percentage? It looks like 9, more or less, if you read off that amount. And they want the percentage, so that's 9 out of, what percentage of boys spent less than? So it's out of the boys total, okay, and there are 35 boys, and we're going to times that by 100, which gives us the percentage of boys who spent less than 200, so that gives me 25.71%. And then lastly, last question, what percentage of the boys spent more than 600 Rand? Now you need to understand what they're asking here. I'm just going to erase all of the color. I need some space to do some coloring in. Okay, so I want to know more than 600 Rand for the boys. So if I go to 600 and I read that off, that is, it seems, at 22. Okay. But I want more than that. I don't want how many did less than 600. I want to know how many did more than 600. So it's all of these. All of these kids had more than 600. So what's the highest for the boys? Let's read that off. That's 1,000 Rand for the boys. How many spent 1,000 Rand? So if I read that off, that looks to me like about 35-ish, and this is about 22. So how many boys I need to say 35 is the total that spent 1,000, and then 22 is the total that spent 600. So between them, that's the total of people that spent between 60 and 100 or 1,000. That gives me 13, which means it's 13 over 35 boys times by 100% will give me 37.14% of the boys spent more than 600,000. Question 10. Question 10 says a spelling test was given to 1,000 learners. Okay, so that's my total, in which the maximum possible mark that could be obtained was 90. And it gives you a few plotting values for your cumulative frequency, and then it gives you the ogive curve. And then it says a data value is said to be an isolated value if the following is true. So if it's less than the lower boundary, so we call this the lower boundary, and we call that the upper boundary. And guys, this is how we determine whether a set of data has outliers in it. So you have to determine the boundaries and then check if you have any of those lying within or outside your boundaries. So we need to find quartile 1, quartile 3, and then the interquartile range. So I'm going to start with quartile 1. The formula there is a quarter of the amount of people. So that's 1,000, which gives me 250. Now I need to use my ogive to get to that answer. So, okay, mine is very, very small, but yours might be a little bit bigger. So your answers might be more accurate than mine. But you'll read off 250. So that's about 300. 250, read off your value. And I got about 32 if I read it correctly. 32 for quartile 1. Plus minus. Okay, if you didn't get 32, we will be gracious with about 1 or 2 numbers before or after 32, so that's okay. We then want quartile 3, which is 3/4 of 1,000. And if we work that out, we get 750. That's obviously the position. So if you go up to your graph and you read 750, so 700 is going to be there, so 750 is there in the middle. And you can use your ruler here. Please don't do it like I'm doing it using my free hand. I'm just trying to save time for us. Which gives me more or less 68. So that is your quartile 3's value. Plus minus 68. And now I'm going to determine my upper and lower boundary. So my lower boundary is quartile 1 minus 1,5 times the interquartile range, which is quartile 3 minus quartile 1. And if you work that out, you get a lower boundary of minus 22. Then for your upper boundary, you want there 68 plus, so that's quartile 3, plus 1,5 times the interquartile range again, which then gives you an answer of 122. So what are we looking for? Do you have any values less than minus 22? And do you have any values more or bigger than 122? And if you do, then you have outliers. So let's check our set of data. What is the lowest number that we can get here? The lowest mark. And you can see it's impossible to get a mark less than minus 22. So there's no outlier on the left. What is the highest mark that we can get for this test? The highest mark that we got here was 90. So do we have any test marks that can be more than 122? No, we don't. So that's why we say thus, we don't have any outliers and we are done. Normally when they want you to use these formulas for outliers, they will be given to you in the question. So you do not have to study these formulas. Question 11. Last question for stats. And it says the science, mathematics, and we're looking at box and whisker diagrams again. And it says use the diagram to determine the range of maths. Range is the highest value minus the lowest value. So that's quite easy. So this one is just 98 and minus 10. Okay, so your range for 2 marks is 88. The median for science, that is the little line in the middle of the box. And if you read that off, that gives you a median of 52. Then it says in the next question, determine the interquartile range for science. The interquartile range for science is quartile 3 minus quartile 1. So that is 70 minus 44. 70 minus 44, which gives me an interquartile range of 26. Question B. Which examination was easier for the students? Justify giving 2 reasons why. Now, if I go back to the 2 box and whiskers, they will always ask a question where you have to take 2 box and whiskers and interpret them, analyze them, and give me some kind of conclusion on what you are seeing here. So, what I want you to please focus on in commenting on is taking the percentages and mentioning them. So, this is quartile 1. So, for science, this is what we call quartile 1, and this is your highest value for science. So your 75, your top 75%, so we call that 75% of the data. Remember that a box and whisker is always divided into 25% percentiles, if you want. So this whisker is 25%. This little box here is 25% of the data. Then that box is 25% of the data. And that box, or that tail, is 25% of the data. So what a lot of kids do wrong, guys, is that they say, because this length or this distance is bigger than the distance here, that we have more people in that range, and that is not true. All of these little bits of a box and whisker diagram have the same amount of people in it. That's what you need to understand. The box and whisker tells you about the spread. How are your data values spread out? That is what a box and whisker tells you. It's not the amount of people, but the spread of the people. So let's say I'm going to start with science, and I'm going to mention the top 75% has a mark above 44% and lower than, what is that, 88%. For maths, the top 75%, now look here, this is the top 75 for maths. The top 75% for maths has a mark above 30 and lower than 98. But then if you look at the bottom 60%, the bottom 50%, look here, the bottom 50% of science, the bottom, so let's talk about science again. The bottom 50%, has a mark between 30 and 52. Whereas for maths, now this will make a huge difference. Look at these values here. For maths, your bottom 50% of your class has a mark between, and let's check these values out, between, there's your middle, so that is 44 and 10. 10% and 44%. So you can clearly see the difference here. Which one was harder, guys? Which one was the harder paper? Definitely mathematics. So we're going to say maths is harder. Why is it harder? And you're going to talk about the percentages. Also, you can say 25% of the students, guys, 25% of the math students got between 10 and 30%. That is very low. Whereas the lowest 25% of science got between 30 and 44. Okay, that's a lot higher. Look at that, 10 to 30 and 30 to 44. Okay, a lot more kids did better in science than in maths. And we talk about and we use the percentages to help us explain that answer. You can also, if you want, you can mention the lowest mark. The lowest mark for science was 30 and the lowest mark for maths was 10. Okay, yes, the highest mark was for maths, but this might be an outlier. Okay, this might be one oak that understood the maths exam and the rest of us didn't. So you can't really go on one outlier and say, oh, the maths was the easiest. It doesn't work like that. You have to look at the spread of the data. That is what this is about. And when you do tell me something about the spread, talk about the percentages of the blocks, talk about the median. Okay, you can mention the median if you want. The median here for science is 52. The median here is 44. So the median for maths is lower. Okay, your middle value for your maths is lower, which is another indicator that the maths paper was the harder one. So I hope that makes sense, guys. There's lots of marks that we can give away there, but the percentages will definitely help. Which examination has a wider spread of schools? Now, you need to give two reasons. Which one has a bigger spread? And you can clearly see that's maths, okay? Why do I say it's a bigger spread? Look at the difference in your range, okay? The range there is massive, whereas the range for science is not as big. And the second thing you can mention is look at the interquartile range. Compare that interquartile range to the interquartile range of science. So you can talk about the range and the interquartile range that is bigger for maths than for science. So there's a lot more variation in marks for mathematics. It's wider spread out. Last question. If a learner from the science sample is selected at random, find the probability that they achieved a mark greater than 70%. So let's just go back. I'm just going to erase because this is like a lot of stuff that we've written down here. So where is 70%, guys? Where is that mark? Let's just check. Here it is. This is 70%. So what percentage of people for science scored more than 70%? And you should know that that is 25%, because we just said every single bit of the box and whisker is always divided into 25 percentiles, 25%. Same here, 25%, 25%, 25%, and 25%. That is a very important concept to understand, and please study that, okay? The chances that they're going to test that thing is quite big. So that is stats for you. Lovely 11 questions, and it's an easy section where you can get lots of marks in. Please go and revise all the basic concepts that you need to study, because if you can just study the knowledge, you will get your marks in the stats question. It's really a section that we can score a lot of marks in. Awesome, I'll see you at the next lesson.